An Arctic blast is plunging down into the central and southern US as a heat dome surges out west, with some potentially wild temperature changes ahead. At the same time, it's raining quite a bit along the Gulf Coast in Florida, but something's missing. Where are the hurricanes? That's what this video is all about. But first, be sure to hit the like button, also subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon if you haven't already for more weather updates. Starting off with this Arctic blast, you can see right now that current temperature anomalies pretty much definitely well above average in the western US, especially in the Pacific Northwest, extremely above average. And then you have all these below average temperatures coming down into the central US, going even down into the south. And then what happens is, over the next 24 hours or so going into, tomorrow, still you have those cooler temperatures in the south, which is also due to a lot of rain that's happening there, which we'll also talk about. And you have this colder air in the Midwest, and that's going to be plunging down, and it actually gets pretty intense. So, somewhat of an Arctic blast. It's not going to be snowing or anything like that, except, maybe in southern Canada there might be a chance of some rain and snow, but just well below average temperatures really plunging down. Definitely, fall conditions, even temperatures you might see later in fall. And then you have those really hot temperatures in the western US, and it stays pretty intense. This is going in towards Saturday. Then this is where you have this Arctic blast really plunges down, where you have well below average temperatures across the Midwest, especially the Great Lakes region, Michigan, even southern Canada like Ontario. You have also the Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, and then slightly less intense below average temperatures plunging all the way down into the south. Really, the entire part of the U.S. east of the Rocky Mountains would be seeing, pretty much below average temperatures, except for the Northeast, where temperatures are still near to slightly above average. And then you have well above average temperatures still in the Pacific Northwest and also southwestern Canada. And then, those cooler temperatures plunge further to the southeast, and then you start seeing cooler temperatures showing up in central California going into Sunday, September 8th. And then, notice what happens. Those cooler temperatures push further down into the south, and then, that kind of dissipates. But then you have, hotter temperatures that actually replace it, so it warms back up. So you get this huge, cool down, sort of an Arctic blast well below average temperatures, and then it comes back up to significantly above average temperatures across the Midwest. Maybe sort of a heat wave there, and then some cooler temperatures coming into the Pacific Northwest. So you have these pretty dramatic temperature changes, which is a typical fall weather pattern. But then we go towards mid-September, and then you have a lot more warmer temperatures. This is 10 days out, so it'll probably change quite a bit, but still you get the idea of this Arctic blast coming down into the Midwest and then working its way south and east through the weekend and early next week. Then you have that heat dome over the next couple days or so over the western US, and then that goes away, and then the temperatures change back around to below average temperatures in the Pacific Northwest, and then warmer temperatures in the Midwest. Another look at this is the actual temperatures. You have pretty much temperatures kind of even approaching 100 degrees, even in the Pacific Northwest, but especially California and the Southwest. Temperatures well over 100 degrees, but then notice what happens. Those cool temperatures really plunge down from the Midwest, even temperatures in the mid-30s, mid to lower 30s, possibly isolated areas getting down to freezing. So, this is definitely well below average temperatures because still early September. This is these are, more fall-like conditions that you'd probably see in October or even later into September. And then you have those cooler temperatures start pushing south as well. But even kind of the daytime temperatures get into the upper 50s. That's pretty cool for sure. And then the heat does eventually probably get less intense over the western US also. Pretty much, yeah, those cooler temperatures pushing further east. Then you have lows in the 50s, which is not too bad, I guess. But then notice what happens. Then you have those temperatures, those high temperatures in Michigan in the mid 50s, mid to upper 50s. Then now it's like temperatures back in the 80s. So definitely a dramatic temperature change, and then you're back in the upper 80s possibly, and then even further south, kind of in the Kansas, Oklahoma area, temperatures back in the 90s, and then notice those temperatures actually cool down, even freezing temperatures in the mountains in the western U.S., but in general, temperatures going down into the 40s and 50s, and the highs are in the possibly in the 60s. So that definitely a pretty dramatic temperature change there. And this is kind of what happens. You're going to have this, this big trough basically is what is causing this. You have this big trough really plunges down into the Great Lakes region. You have this huge ridge, high pressure at the same time over the west. That's kind of your heat dome. And then what happens is then that kind of goes away and that flattens out. Then you have what kind of looks like, a less dramatic jet stream pattern, but then you have another trough. This is what brings the cooler temperatures in the Pacific Northwest. This decent trough coming into the Pacific Northwest by around September 12th, and then notice what happens. Then you have seems like troughing moves further east into the north central U.S., and then you have still more troughing. Then you have ridging, so that's going to bring warmer temperatures where you have that, and then also troughing in the southeastern U.S. So pretty active weather pattern in a way in terms of temperatures. Not so much in terms of a lot of severe weather. It doesn't really look like there's going to be that much severe weather, at least not yet. In terms of the temperatures, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook shows from September 11th to September 15th, there's going to be well above average temperatures. So after this kind of Arctic blast, it actually gets replaced by a heat wave, and you have well above average temperatures over the Midwest and the Great Lakes region, below to near normal temperatures along the western U.S., and then below average temperatures also happening in the south along the Gulf Coast, and also that continues into the 8 to 14 day outlook, really, going all the way into September 19th, well above average temperatures over the Midwest, and cooler along the West Coast and the Southeast. So that's basically what it's going to look like after what's happening over the next couple days. And then even, a slight risk of excessive heat. So you go from, freezing temperatures. There are actually, freezing temperatures, or at least low temperatures in the low to mid 30s going to happen this weekend. And then you go to a slight risk of excessive heat in some of these areas and the Southwest. You have actually, those cooler temperatures in the South are actually kind of partially due to a lot of rain that's happening, and they're going to get quite a bit of rain over the next week at least. And you have kind of a weak low pressure system. This, you would think maybe this could turn into a tropical system, but it probably won't. And it's really actually part of a frontal system, so that's kind of interesting. You have all this frontal activity in, along the Gulf Coast instead of tropical activity. So that's sort of strange. And you have this kind of stalled low pressure area, so it's going to be just raining, especially kind of over Louisiana for a while. And this actually, that low kind of just spins around there, and this is going into, September 8th, still raining there, actually, and then that low, it kind of goes south, and then it pulls north again, so then it's still raining over kind of southern Texas and also part of Louisiana going to September 10th, and then it looks like some of that rain stops, but then you just still have kind of off and on rain for at least the next week, but then it might finally stop, and then you actually have a maybe possibly a weak tropical system in the eastern Pacific, and then this area of low pressure may try to turn into a subtropical system at some point, but even that probably might not. Not really any tropical activity. You have all this rain, and it's technically tropical moisture, but it's not organized into any tropical cyclone. But you do have a day one moderate risk of excessive rainfall for southeastern Louisiana, including New Orleans. That's the day one outlook, and then a day two moderate risk of flooding, and then a big slight risk across the south. So you get all this rain kind of happening, and then it drops to a marginal risk. So the next really, it looks like the next 2 days or so going into, even kind of this weekend, still going to be raining, but at some point it will tone down. But 7-day total precipitation, if you look at this, it's just tons of rain just concentrated along the Gulf Coast. You have at least anywhere from 4 inches going up to 8, 10, 12 inches, maybe even more than that in some areas, and all this is just kind of along the Gulf Coast especially. And then you have some of that rain is getting up into the southeast and the east coast, where you could get, maybe half an inch, maybe an inch or two of rain over the next 7 days. But then the rest of the U.S. is actually pretty dry, except for, maybe, occasional scattered amounts of light rain. And then you have maybe, actually that trough that's going to be coming into the Pacific Northwest could, start help bringing in some more rain to that region. So there could be, possibly a little bit of rain starting to move into that area by, September 12th. And actually, there could be quite a bit of rain along the Gulf Coast with this low pressure system stalled kind of near the Texas and Louisiana coastline. And you could get over 20 inches of rain, according to the Euro model, showing this is only over the next 5 days, possibly 18 to 20 inches of rain just offshore. And then inland, actually along the coast, you could have about 15 to 18 inches of rain. This is near Intracoastal City, Cameron, Lake Arthur, and then, over towards New Orleans, maybe 7 to 9 inches of rain. Houston could see possibly 7 inches of rain, according to this. And even further east over like Biloxi, 8 inches, Mobile, 4 to 5. And then once you go over towards like Florida, it's less rain, but at least a couple inches over the next 5 days. And this is the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook showing September 11th to September 15th. Below average precipitation across the Northeast, the Midwest, all that well below average. Even the Southwest, below average. But then the Northwestern US gets above average precipitation, and the Gulf Coast and the South above average precipitation. and that continues even into the 8 to 14 day outlook. Same basic idea, but even, the Southwest starts getting a little bit of rain, but definitely, above average precipitation for the next couple of weeks across the South. But the thing is, none of this is tropical, and this is going into mid-September. You have all this rain, but, something's missing. What's happening with the tropics? The NHC actually, they had 5 disturbances here. I guess they've removed one of them, but yeah, there's 4 disturbances, but they each only have like a 10 to 30% chance of formation. This one is a 0, so this is actually gone. And then this one is 10%. This is that low pressure system that's bringing a lot of rain, along the Gulf Coast over the next couple days. But then you have this one is a 0 to 20% chance. This one has a 30% chance, and this is actually an Invest 99, and they actually have, there is a potential for it to try to become a subtropical storm, but it's still not really, it could become a short-lived kind of, subtropical storm, so that would add another name, but it's not really going to do that much of anything. But if you look at, this was when they had 5 disturbances on here, this is what that looked like. So that looks like there's a lot of activity, but really there isn't. And actually, so they changed this, so they're like, yeah, it could develop. This one, no. This one, maybe. So at some point in the next 7 days, they might bring this back as a disturbance, but really not any organized tropical activity. And the season was expected to be hyperactive, and you have all that, upper ocean heat content, above average sea surface temperatures, all that good stuff, but it hasn't really turned into anything. And, even the Saharan dust, that's out of the way, but you do have a lot of shear. If you look at this is the average amount of shear. These are 5-day averages, so over the next 5 days, and then out from there. Really, the Gulf Coast area and the east coast of the U.S., really, there's all that frontal activity, which generates a lot of shear, really, not going to be favorable for any tropical storms. So this area is really blocked off, I think, for tropical activity, unless it's a quick spin-up tropical cyclone, which, can happen, like, there were a couple of named storms in 2019 that did that, and, it happens sometimes where you get, like, a quick tropical storm off of, a non-tropical low, but even the main development region, there's still, near to below average shear, so this might eventually start getting a little bit more active, because this is pretty much where there's going to be activity. Like, in the near future, this area is really blocked off. Now, this area could see some activity. The main development region is where, I think, if anything happens, where that would be. Even that is, like, average amount of shear to slightly above average in some places. So it's not really looking that great for, for tropical cyclones, really. So this season is not panning out how it was supposed to, I guess, according to the forecasts. And also the MJO is another thing. You have really unfavorable conditions right now. September 5th, unfavorable. Then going into September 10th, which is the climatological peak of hurricane season, slightly favorable over the Pacific. I don't know if that's enough to do anything, but then you still have unfavorable over the Atlantic and also unfavorable over Africa, where the tropical waves will actually come from. So that could be a problem for any tropical activity. And then going to September 15th, still unfavorable, especially over Africa. Then it looks like September 20th, there might be an opportunity for something to form around September 20th. It looks a little more favorable, neutral at least over Africa, which, that could support something, and then slightly favorable over the Atlantic and the Pacific to some extent, and then it still looks okay around September 25th, and then once you go into September 30th and after that, really it starts looking really unfavorable over Africa, but you still have it being neutral to slightly favorable through at least mid-October. So that's something interesting. So there might be able to be some sort of activity in October. If not, like, if it just stays unfavorable through the rest of the hurricane season, at least through mid-October, then pretty much this season could end up being below average. I think it probably could get close to average, but it's not definitely not looking like what it was expected to look like even maybe a month ago or 2 months ago. It was supposed to be very active by this point, and it hasn't turned out to do that. But the global tropics hazards outlook does show maybe a 20 to 40% chance of something forming in the Atlantic, in the main development region from September 11th to September 17th, and the East Pacific. There's also potential there. September 18th to 24th, only a 20% chance of something forming. We'll see what happens. At some point, there's going to have to be some more activity, but who knows when that'll be, since it's really looking not that favorable for anything for a while, at least until closer to September 20th. We'll see if there's a chance for some activity. Hopefully not any like really impactful storms, but at least for adding names to the hurricane season. Even if it's fish storms, at least that that counts as something to add to the list of named storms. And the ensembles aren't really showing much in the near future. You have like all these areas of slight potential, like this low in the Gulf. It probably won't become tropical, but it could. But that'll be another short-lived storm, like Alberto and Chris. Then you have potential off the East Coast. Then you have this out in the main development region. That seems like probably not like it's gonna do much of anything. That seems like it pretty much for the most part just turns into this sort of fish storm, but then some of the tracks do show eventually a storm headed towards the northeastern Caribbean. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we have the Arctic blast, the heat dome, and some dramatic temperature changes, and some rain, along the Gulf Coast, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button, share the video, comment below, and please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already for more weather information. Extreme Weather Zone out.